I met Paul, had the privilege of meeting Paul when I first started training to become a homeless pastor. And he's just such a beautiful man. And then we got to know him a little bit more when he came to, we looked after him when he came over to Leeds. When he slept out, he did five sleep outs in 5 different cities to raise money. And he did his first sleep out here, behind the church. And we had the privilege of spending some time with him and fellowshipping with him. And he's just such a beautiful, humble guy. I call him a brother, I call him a friend. And we're graduating together on Sunday. We're graduating as homeless pastors. And Matthew as well. Matthew as well. Yeah. Blessed to have you here, brother. We've had some good time stomping the streets of Leeds, singing and dancing.
We did.
Yes. So I've got the absolute pleasure of welcoming Paul. He's going to come and share his powerful testimony and give us a little bit of encouragement.
Experience, strength and all.
Yeah. So can we just give Paul a really super warm welcome?
Thank you everyone for coming. Praise God, I'm here. It's by His grace and only His grace that I'm able to stand here today. What it says is that I was thinking coming up over from Lancashire, what we're going to talk about. And it's learning battling addiction. My addiction started when I was 8 years of age. My mum and dad split up when I was 5, and I had a younger brother at 3. And I think that was the very first experience of trauma that I suffered. And it was probably the last one I ever let go of. I remember it as clear as day, my dad's suitcase from the living room window in 22 Ludgate, and Saturday morning, and he's walking off up the road, and I'm running after him like a little crying my eyes out, and to go away. And a neighbour right up at the top of the road, we lived at number 22. The neighbour at number 8 Ludgate had to come and pick me up, put me under his arm, and take me into his house. And from that moment, I wouldn't allow anybody to come into my house. My mum met any new male friends, you know. What, you were here last night? You know, that sort of, that angry, and that went on for a good while. And at 8-year-old, my mum had been seeing this gentleman, and I was chaotic. I was causing trouble whenever I could. He gave me a bottle of gold label barley wine, thinking it would knock me out. Unfortunately, it had the total opposite effect. But for the first time in my entire life, from when my dad left, all that pain went. And I was off. Anything and everything that I could get my hands on to take away that pain, I did. That went on and on and on. Through my teens, my mum had to get social services because I was unmanageable. She couldn't control me. And if it weren't for my grandparents stepping up, that's my dad's mum and dad, and saying, we'll take him. My grandma was 78 years of age when she took me. My granddad was 62. But I was damaged goods. I had no morals, no values. I was in pain. And I was like a feral cat. I was wild, untamable. And everything I did was what I wanted to do. But it was all vented in anger. Just pure anger. My granddad took us fishing to Gerstein near Lancaster every 2-week holidays, camping and fishing on the canal. And this one particular year, a stranger had said that he knew where there was a fishing pond, and my granddad said I could go with him. And unfortunately, we got to the fishing pond, and before I got there, he had me a knife point and raped me. And I couldn't tell my granddad. And and I was petrified, but it just reeled more anger and anger. By the time I left school, I was drinking 4 times a week, sniffing glue, taking amphetamines, magic mushroom, anything and everything. By the time I was 21, I was a full-blown heroin addict. That went on for 10 years. Then I decided to get out for that and got up a prescription from Breakthrough Hospital, methadone. But I just couldn't grasp life. I had a young baby child, which I just ran away from, deserted and left, but I'll come to that in a bit. Sorry, is that better? Is that better? Yeah. Is that better? Sorry, could told me earlier. Methadone script, and I was taken into Breakthrough Hospital to detox, but I was on that big of a prescription. They had to take me in twice to detox me off a 50ml lamp first and sent me back out on 85ml methadone a day. But it were horrible, but I had a needle fixation. Do you know what I mean? So I was still doing other drugs, using the needle with the fixation. It was terrible. I have the scars today, that prove that. But I wasn't drinking, so I went back into the Breakthrough Hospital, the arrangement for me to detox and then go to a rehab in Birkenhead called Phoenix House. While my brother had just completed this. So I knew it worked, you know what I mean? I knew it worked because my brother had completed. All I had to do was show up and get in there. And I did, and I completed the program there. And I did all the work I needed to do regarding drugs and that. But what I didn't realise, was I still wasn't right myself.
You got to work on yourself.
And I left on the 20th of February 2002. And by the time I was at Breakthrough train station, I picked up the alcohol. And I first left straight off. And that was another 20 years of misery. Because it had hold of me. And I was justifying it because I wasn't using drugs. Mm-hmm. So on and on all the time. And as time went on, I lost my mum with cancer, which sent me drinking off the scale. No control, didn't care, didn't want to be here. And from that moment, because my mum was gone, I was homeless. Basically, 2014, I was homeless, but I was sofa surfing, either wherever I could. And that soon burnt out. I burnt all the bridges everywhere. No family, didn't want to know me, nothing they could do with me. I have a sister that wanted to know me, but she just couldn't cope with me, which was a shame. So I ended up sleeping in a derelict mill with a friend for the best part of 3 years. And it went next door to Living Waters Church in Chorley. And every Tuesday there was a homeless pastor. There was 3 of them from Living Waters Church that came out every Tuesday. Every week she'd come spend time with me and my friend, who were also homeless, and chat to us, and allow me to chat for the first time. She never judged, but just having that ear there, that I could just talk to her. She'd ask if I wanted to pray. I used to decline at first. No, I don't need no prayer. None of that one. But then eventually, bit by bit, week by week, I started to feel something for the first time in my life. you know, but I was still really like drinking. And what it was is my Polish friend, he'd been working and his boss had kept his passport and stuff, so he couldn't claim no benefits. So he was actually in a worse position than me. He had to beg every day for food and money and things like that. And there was a lady at the church who worked at the embassy in Manchester, and all I had to do was get into the church. You know, that's all I had to do, get into the church this Sunday morning to meet this lady from the embassy to get his passport and everything sorted. And I was about 8 miles away that night. I ended up in Bamber Bridge near Preston, and I come to just on this crossroads. Police walked me up, but they wouldn't give me a lift back. I had to walk all the way back to get, and I don't know what it was, but it was, I just have to get back to get into church. And I landed in Charlie about 7:30 in the morning. Found him outside Ladbrokes Buckies in the middle of town, lying on his mat in a sleeping bag, freezing cold, pretty wet through his shaking like that. I'm sweating because I've walked all the alcohol. I said, come on, I'll go and get my bag and we'll nip to the shop, get some beers, and then we'll go to the church. And I remember we got to the church, and Angela, the street pastor, she stood outside and she had this lovely beaming smile on her face, you know, because we got there. I was really ill, but I had some beers in my rucksack. And I said, right, he's here, come on. I said, I'm going now, I need a drink. You know, but for some shit, she said, oh, well, just come in, it's cold, just come in and meet the lady and, you know, trying to persuade me in. And no, I'm too ill, I'll just go and have a drink first and then I'll come back in. You know, she said, well, let's go and meet her, so Lucas can see her and then you can find her off. Alright, then come on, hurry up, be quick. You know, so I've walked up the steps, double doors, and I've walked in, and the minute I hit that carpet, I just started crying. Absolutely overwhelmed. I couldn't stop. I really could not stop crying. You know, I haven't even got to my seat. She sat me down, and I'm crying my eyes out. And all I remembered was that I was a broken man, and I didn't realise I was broken. And everything that had broken me were removed. Yeah, and I had never ever felt love in my entire life like I felt when I left that church.
Wow.
And everybody, they were like, you know, it's alright, it's only the Holy Spirit. What's that? What do you mean? What do you mean? And honest to God, I did not have a clue what happened. And I ran out of that church, straight across the road onto Asda, where I sit on the bench, and I'm do you know what I mean, drinking, and I'm thinking, what's going on? But I remembered, for the first time, you know, I didn't have an obsession to drink. It had gone instantly, just like that, but I couldn't stop. You know, so I started then trying to moderate my drinking, and, you know, drinking in the mornings. I was living under a motorway bridge. You know, we got kicked out of the mill because they started it. And I remember going up to the motorway bridge to kill myself. I'd had enough, you know. And as an alcoholic, there were two things I never did. I never spilled my beer, and I never dropped it. And for some strange reason, I got to the motorway bridge, I took my rucksack off, and I gone like that with my bottle, and put it on the rail, and I missed. And it fell down the side. You know, so I jumped over to run down and get it, and I looked round my arm, and I thought, flip me, I can live under here. You know, and I set all them up under there. And I was under there 15 months. You know what I mean? 15 months. But what I was doing is I engaged with the Living Waters Church. I went on an alpha course, and I started asking questions. Yeah, because I couldn't understand of a church of 300 people, yeah, and why has he chosen me? Why has he only chose me that morning? And I'm like that.
Because you're broken.
Do you know what I mean? And I couldn't understand it, and I didn't want to believe him. Do you know what I mean? And then I was wrestling with the idea, well, alright, you've done all this to me, I feel wonderful, why can you not stop me drinking? Do you know what I mean? Why can you not stop me drinking? Why am I drinking every day now when I don't want to? You know what I mean? And the only time I didn't drink was a Sunday morning before service. But the first thing I did after service was pick up drink up. And a friend of mine in a recovery room lost her life in a recovery room. She was found dead in a recovery room. And this recovery room had CCTV. So I wanted to go to the inquest. And the street pastor said, right, well, I'm going for the inquest. You know, I said, well, I've got a number for the treatment centre. I said, after the inquest, I'll go and seek some help. So I'd surrendered, that I couldn't do it on my own. And I had a number for a treatment centre that I could get help from. You know, so I'm waiting around for the inquest that was in February. In that process, my best friend, who had grown up with me all my life, lost his battle with cancer. And he come to me and he told me there's nothing else they can do for him, but he wanted to die at home. And he asked me if I could make that possible. And for the first time in my life, somebody's put a responsibility onto me, that was more powerful than what normally happens. Because I've run away from responsibility. But this is my lifelong friend. The least I can do for him is to let him die at home if that's what he wants. And I arranged to get the end of life care treatment. The inquest had been done, and she died of epilepsy. She'd had a seizure in her bed one night. So, you know, that put all that to pay that she drug overdose and all the gossip. So I had peace of mind with that. But then I had Paul, big proud, you know, in front of me. You know, he's not an alcoholic, not an addict or anything, you know. 6 foot 8, he's like Colin's size. Yeah, he was exactly like Colin's size. And I'm watching his body just shrivel away to nothing. But his brain was alright. You know, he was gambling. I was going to the bookies all day, you know, while he's gambling. And I'm praying. And this one night, I sat down outside of him and we prayed. And he just looked at me in the eye and said, Paul, when I die and go to heaven, please will you sort your life out? Because you're a good man and you deserve to live a good life. Do you know what I mean? I go, wow. I said, well, when you get to heaven, let me know you're there and I'll sort my life out. You know, just joking it off like. Anyway, he passed. And he was a Liverpool fan, and I was a Man United fan. Liverpool beat Man United 7-0. 7-0. Never in my entire life I've been on this planet has that ever happened. Yeah? Me and my insane thinking, right, 7 for heaven, he's there. Honest to God, and I promise you, right? It was on the Saturday, it was on the Sunday actually, the game, when it happened, and on the Monday I spoke to him and I said, right, I'm ready to get some treatment, bring the treatment centre. And on the Friday I made a self-referral by email, and I phoned them then the day after to make sure they got the email. And they did it over the phone referral with me. Now, with no services or anything like that, just me on my own over this bridge. And they turned around and they said, right, we can accept you. If you can get sober, you can come in on the 1st of April. You know? And I had to do a week on that bridge to get sober. I wouldn't advise it to anybody.
No.
Definitely not, you know, but I knew God was with me. You know what I mean? And I knew this is His doing. Because nobody gets in a treatment centre within a week. No. You know, it was just like it was meant to be. And I did, and I remember on the 24th of March it was, I was cleaning, packing stuff under the bridge, and I come across a dragon suit blue. It must have been there months. Honestly, God, I kept on thinking, I was waking up in the mornings and needing a drink, and that's been there all the time. But I drank it. But what I did do for the first time was took responsibility and ownership of my actions, and I phoned the treatment centre straight away to tell them I've had a drink, and so is it going to jeopardise me coming in? You know what I mean? And it was on a voice note. And I had 2 shops that I used to leave bank cards with, so I could get beer. And from that, when I drunk that time, till the shop shut at 10:30, that was the worst 5 hours of my entire life. Honestly, God, after I drunk that way, it was horrendous. The motorway traffic's louder than anything, you know. And once 10:30 come, I came down. And again, I remember, you know, just lying there going, thank you, Jesus, please help me, you know. And he did. And from that moment, I kept busy, kept running about in town, helping out at food kitchens and food banks that I was always taking off. You know, I was known as a likeable nuisance. That's what the name is in Chile. I weren't a bad lad, you know, unless I was desperate for a drink, and I'd pinch the old bottle of wine, you know, and if I needed to. But I was a likeable nuisance, you know. I used to make a nuisance of myself everywhere I went. And come for Saturday, the 1st of April, I've got my bags, I'm in the car, and I'm driving up from Chorley over to Glen Valley in Bottenstall, and I'm thinking, I'm going to get there, they're going to tell me, April Fool, you know, all this stuff's going on in my head, you know, and, you know, I got there, and I remember as soon as I walked into the garden, I hadn't even got into the house, but I felt at home. I felt, yeah, I'm home. And I've already made a commitment, you know, to myself and to God that this treatment centre was a 12-week programme. So I'd said to myself that I'm going to go, do the 12 weeks, do whatever they say to do, without any questions, you know, and don't let them interfere with me praying. That's what I wanted, because I was praying every day, you know, and I thought, right, I'll do that, you know. And we got there, and they said, right, yeah, laughing, everything, but what, you've got to do 3 meetings a week. I said, you what? He said, you've got to go to 3 meetings a week. You know, and again, for me, by the grace of God, they were all Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. You know, and I landed on Saturday. My first ever meeting was on Sunday. And for the first time in my life, I knew that I weren't alone, yeah, and I was in. You know, and by the end of the first week, I knew there was a solution. So now I've got God, yeah, basically said, I could have made you stop drinking anytime I wanted. But Paul, you're lazy, you need to go out and learn how to manage life. Yeah, unmanageability, you need to learn, that's something you need to meet me with and learn how to manage life without taking anything. You know, that's my part of the bargain, and I stick by that every single day today. You know, that I need to be able to be responsible for managing my recovery, and he takes care of everything else. Yeah, you know, and that 12-step program there is my new operating system in this head. Because this head's sick, this head wants me dead every day. Yeah, and that allows me, yeah, to operate and deal with any single problem that life throws at me on a daily basis, only for a day, that I can't deal with. Yeah, and believe me, since being in treatment, every single trigger that has normally led me to that I've been tested with. And again, you know, that program there. But the most important one for me is I have to come to believe, you know, that Jesus Christ is Lord and Saviour. You know, I have to come to believe to that, and that's what I surrendered to. I have to surrender myself and my thinking and my actions over to a power that's far greater, far beautiful, far more loving, yeah, than I've ever experienced in my life. That was easy for me, you know, because everything I tried in my life had all ended up in hell. I didn't know how to live life, so that bit was easy, you know. But then comes to me step 4 and step 5. I've got to look at myself. 53 years of age, yeah. I never looked at myself. I didn't know who I were. I didn't know where I were, and it was petrifying. But step 3 told me, handing my will and my life over to God. Yeah, that's my will is my thinking, and my life is my actions. And I've been doing that for the best part of a year and a half, and that always gives me the strength and the courage, yeah, to write down and look at myself. Yeah? And boy, was I very selfish. Was I very self-centered? Was I very angry? Yeah, don't know, angry. You know what I mean? I was in pain, I was in trauma and stuff, yeah? But he loved me. Always loved me. That song says, all my life he's been faithful. Yes, I've overdosed on drugs 3 times, dead. I've tried to commit suicide, failed. Yeah, because he loves me. He's got a purpose for me. He's got a purpose for me. All I have to do is be willing.
Believe.
And honest. You know, and that's what I did. And then comes the greatest miracle. You know, everything I was looking for in life and everything I wanted in life started to happen. I found a beautiful partner who's now a fiance, and without her, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do all this. You know, I didn't think I'd be able to ever go back and work with people in recovery because of the fear I might go back there myself. I'm here. I'm trying to be an homeless pastor because I don't want people to get alone. I just think there's no hope and there's no way back.
There is.
Do you know? Because there is. There is. But it takes a bit of honesty, a bit of willingness and a bit of open-mindedness. And that's all I have to do. Listen, be willing and be honest to myself. No else. It's about being honest to myself. Something I've never ever done. Because I lie to myself every day, all my life. You know. And I've trained to be an honest pastor. I graduate, as you know, God's got me here to tell my story. Yeah. Because all the suffering and all the pain and all the trauma and addiction, yeah, I've had to go through all that, and I'm blessed, and I give him glory because he's kept me alive and he's brought me back here today, stronger than ever, broken from all them chains that I were chained to with the gates of hell. And once I broke away from them gates of hell, man, that's when the devil came running after me. He was fuming, he didn't even have a doorman watching me when I was there. You know, he didn't need one. You know what I mean? But to be able to do all that, get my own house, have a beautiful wife to be, you know, that I absolutely adore and treasure. I love her like God loved me. Yeah? But to know that he, every single day, runs my life. All I have to do is be obedient and follow his path. And if I ever lose sight of him, yeah, I ask him to put an eye vis on so I know he's back to his And whatever happens in a day, doesn't matter. As long as I don't go back to what I used to do. Because if I ever pick that first drink up, yeah, I'm straight back under that bridge and I'll only get worse and worse. I'm over 2 years away from all that. But I never ever forget where I've come from. And I never regret the past. And I'll go and look at it. And I have a beautiful life. There's one thing that I do wish, and I pray for more than anything, and I'll ask all of you just to pray for me, is that I get a chance to sit down with my son and make that amends to him face to face, and hopefully get to see a grandchild that I've never seen. But if it doesn't matter, if I don't get that chance, that's it. But I won't drink on it.
You will.
That's the most important thing. I will not drink on it, pick drink up on it anymore. And I'm going to be quiet now. Thank you all for listening. I hope it's made sense.